All right, on today's podcast episode, we've got a special one. We're going to be interviewing none other than the godfather of digital marketing, Mr. Mark Joyner. And for those of you who don't know Mark, he is an OG in the industry. He's the inventor of the first tracking pixel, among many other accomplishments, and the founder of over 30 different startups, including Simpleology, which is a software I've personally used and I know people in the company have used to simplify their life and cut their workload in half. Now, how do I know Mark personally and why I brought him onto the podcast was that I was connected through BiOptimizers and Utopia. Mark came in to help us uplevel some copy and some marketing and some funnel upgrades. And we've been experiencing some really big wins. We're also continuing to mind meld on a weekly basis. And I said, why not bring him in on the podcast? Let's talk some shop. Let's share some insights with people and just deliver a bit of value and get it behind the scenes as to what's happening. And not only that, Mark has a lot of different philosophies in life, as well as things that he's looking at in terms of trends and how technological advancements are going to create unintended consequences in our life and how to protect ourselves as a business, how to thrive. And we're going to talk about integration marketing, which may sound like a new concept, but it's something that's been tried and true. And Mark has a book on this, and it's something that we practice a lot. And it's an entirely new discovery method on how to integrate your marketing into co-initiatives and amplify your business in ways you've probably never even thought of yet. So I am super excited to do this interview. I can't wait to deliver the insights. And we have a few surprise bonuses near the end, including a roadmap to money, which is a really cool title. And I'm already sold on it after doing the podcast with him. So I can't wait to share that with you. Let's get into the podcast right now. All right, Mr. Mark Joyner, welcome to the Partner of Profits podcast. I am excited for you to be here with me today and to share your message because you and I have been having really great conversations together through BiOptimizers and Utopia, but I'm happy that I can present now with you on the call to everyone listening. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, man, great to be here.
Before we get started, just a little icebreaker. What's something interesting about you that maybe some people don't know?
I put a lot of personal details out there. So probably one of the things that people are not as aware of is I used to work in the military intelligence community. People who come see me speak live in that context, they might hear about that. But I did spend a good several years working in that. I got trained in the Korean language and was working in the Korean theater of operations on intelligence missions there. That when people hear about you professionally, what you're doing now, they often don't hear about if you had a military past. That's often one of the things people won't hear. But I do try to work it into everything I talk about as often as I can because it provides a great context for a metaphor.
Absolutely. And yeah, it makes a really cool character building biography because I was reading through your stuff and Mark and I are still getting to know each other. And I've got a bit of a background myself. And I used to be a farmer, pet hotel owner. I've got a bunch of different backgrounds with affiliate marketing in the middle. It's interesting to hear everyone's backstory. And I'm going to give you a more formal intro very soon. But Mark, again, has been working with the company. And Matt, who is like a super connector, Matt Gallant, the CEO of BiOptimizers and Utopia, he's known Mark for many years. And we finally had the opportunity to bring him in to work with the company to support us on some copywriting and marketing initiatives. And what a great experience has been so far. And I just thought, hey, why not have you on the podcast? Let's get to know each other a bit better. Some more intriguing questions that I can also share with everyone on the podcast here. But before we jump into the questions, I just want to share some respect for Mark here. Things I really appreciate about you is your speed of implementation. I know ChatGPT and AI is coming out right now, but like you literally keep up with, I just imagine you ChatGPT, but I know you probably don't. I don't know your
Never.
sauce.
Yeah.
You are fast, man. We'll think of like an email and Mark's like already writing it. And also it's interesting because like I didn't really know your background until kind of Matt introduced you. And I knew Simpleology was part of your ecosystem and Andy was using it, our COO. And anyways, the cool thing was the copywriting, I really didn't understand. You were the one writing all those things behind it. You have a very nice conversational tone to your copy and it reads like a conversation. It's nice to read. It's fluid. And I love mind melding with you on calls. Like we've been having some good marketing, really cool stuff because you've got probably 20 years experience, an OG in the industry. You could easily come in and say, hey, I'm dominating this call. I'm doing this my way. And guys, I've done this a lot longer than you, but you're very humble. You're very open to perspectives and hearing people out and also recognizing ideas as they come. So really respect that about you and really appreciate the time we've had so far together.
Thank you for saying that, man. And I really respect you guys too. I love the culture at BiOptimizers. You guys are wonderful. Yeah, it's been a dream working with you guys. There's just very almost zero friction. We're all just like getting everything done and producing good work, and it's just great.
So Mark Joyner, also known as the Lord Commander of the Multiverse, which I love that. Love the manifestation there. I was like, that's the most unique answer I've ever seen. So Great. Founder of 30 startups, now serves as founder and CEO of Simpleology, a web app that doubles your free time and cuts your workload in half by simplifying your life. What a wonderful product that is. And we're going to have a little special intro for that later too. Mark's often referred to as the father of digital marketing for his pioneering role in the early days of online marketing. Among other things, he started the first ebook publishing company, the first online ad tracking company, the second PPC search engine, invented the tracking pixel, and so on. And if that's not enough on the personal side, I thought this was really interesting. So I wanted to just preface this whole conversation with the background of Mark as a former US Army officer of the War of Military Intelligence. He's been awarded for his military service by the NSA, the Defense Language Institute, the US Army, the Republic of Korea Army, the Korean Consulate General, and the President of the United States. That is a massive resume of accomplishments. And I could go on, but is there anything else that you want to be recognized for before we jump into some questions here and get to the valuable part of the conversation here?
I think you did a great there. Those are the high points that I like to get out there. I will just say on a personal, I am also a bit of a biohacker. I'm at 54. I've been into this kind of stuff for a very long time. And as I age, I get more and more deeply into it because, of course, your sense of urgency increases. I take that very seriously, and I love the products that you guys have as well. Like right now, it's been like the exclusive supplement I've been working with, some of the various BiOptimizers products. And Paul Check said in a live conversation that I had with him and Wade, they said, hey guys, plug anything you want. And Paul said, I'll plug something for Wade. The thing about BiOptimizers products is they actually work. And everybody laughed, right? It was a truism about the industry. There's so much stuff out there that doesn't work, but BiOptimizer stuff does. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's one of the taglines that we've tried to test. There's superhuman health, there's regular health, and then there's sick. People don't know that there's a higher level to achieve rather than just regular health. And it's one of the core values. And I think that's what attracts people now to the company that are getting hip to biohacking and premium health services, and not at a premium, like it's not a pharmaceutical. These are products that actually work and no side effects. We want to keep it very holistic and organic and things that are going to benefit us as we get older. And as I get older, it's also very apparent to me, it's time to start taking our health seriously. So not only are we health focused, but we're also mission driven. You and I talked about this a little bit. One of the things that attracted me to the company initially was Matt and Wade's vision. And there was a wolf pack when we first started. There was 6 of us. Like the second round, Matt and Wade started the company back in 2004. And I think they were paying themselves in supplements. And that was like good enough. But then they turned it into a business. I think in 2015, 2016, I was brought in as a consultant for affiliate side. And what really stood out to me was the drive and the vision and just the personalities of both of them that wanted to achieve something more than just money. And throughout the years, we went from a team of 6 to a team of over 100 now, doubling in size, making 5,000 list, the third fastest supplement growing company. And what really stood out to me is the culture they built and the culture of allowing people to want to rise up, be empowered, make decisions, and level up and bring in experts and attract experts, not only in teams, but in consultants and experts to come in with, hey, I need help with this. And we're going to hire people to help us build that. And I don't think a lot of companies have that culture built in. They might have a great product, they even be on the pace to make 100 million or a bunch of money, but it's not sustainable, maybe as a team dynamic. And that's what really attracted me. And I'd love to hear a little bit off the cuff of, besides the biohacking element and besides the idea that you love Matt and Wade because they're great people and you've known them for so long, the company, what was it that kind of attracted you to work with us out of all the ones you could choose to work with?
Aside from just liking the guys, right? The effectiveness of the products. I've had gut issues that so many people in modern society have these days since I was very young. And those products have been some of the most impactful on improving the condition. I'm about ready to do a big, massive Mark Joyner, because the first Bio Boy program we talked about. So for the backstory for everybody else, when I came in, they were like, hey, any of the supplements, like whatever you want. I said, okay, I'm going to go like full in. So I found Wade's Spring Clean Your Gut protocol. And anyway, knowing that working with stuff that's helping a lot of people is really important to me. I want to be in an environment where I can know that I'm contributing in a positive way into the team, but I also want to know that we're not in a vacuum in this world, right? We are interconnected in ways that we cannot even fathom. Buckminster Fuller talked about this a lot in his work. So it's very important that what you are putting out there in the world is having a positive impact, because these things come back to you. We're creating the environment that we are in. And if we're putting garbage out in the environment, then we have to live in that. So I feel like if you put good things in the environment, everything gets better. And a lot of people hear that and they think, oh, that sounds, no, I really think about it. If you really think about it, you start to get a sense of responsibility of, holy crap, it does affect me. I can't just profit at the expense of others and not expect that to affect me. So that was probably the other linchpin for me.
Yeah, and that is super powerful, and it's a story that I have heard a couple times from people that have come to the company, and they might have been on another extreme in another life at another age. Dream of I wasn't healthy and I did a lot of things I kind of regret doing. I have a story of redemption a lot of times where people are now finding salvation through meaningful work and passionate work, and profit comes as a natural side product as you would, but everything needs to make money in order for it to thrive. So I love those stories. And again, like having team members that come to us and say, oh my God, I didn't know this culture could exist. And one,
Yeah.
two, before we jump into some questions, is like the manifestation is real. It might sound like 7 years ago, Matt, Wade, Andy, and I sat down at traffic and conversion in a hotel room and we did a manifestation meditation. I didn't know what it was. And I was like, peeking, is anyone else doing this actually? And I didn't believe in the stuff, but I went through with it. And as I really started to lean in on it and we started to see some success, and I realized manifestation was actually working. And the more we brought people in, the more compounded. And continuously to this day, we continue to do meditations on every biweekly meeting. And for 1 minute, it's a collective thought of everyone in the company. And we're sitting down focused on a vision traction organizer or a 3-year picture or 25-year picture. So I love the culture. I love who it brings us. And today I'm excited to be sharing the knowledge from you, sir, the godfather of marketing. So let's get into it. Everyone to the call here, it's partnership marketers, people that are basically trying to do more with less time or do more. So I'm trying to treat them with a bit of value that I get to look into and share some of that wisdom with people so that if they're part of a smaller team, they might be empowered to make some new decisions based on what they're learning here. I want to know though, one question I really wanted to know selfishly was curious, who were your top 3 mentors from the beginning stage and who remained those top mentors throughout your entire career up until today?
I've had so many that have been consequential in my life. I was very lucky. So when I was in the Army, I was starting my life in business in the early 1990s. So a lot of people online didn't know I was like simultaneous. I was keeping all that secret that I was living that 2 lives at the same time. A friend of mine, Win Wenger, he's a guy who wrote a book called The Einstein Factors. He was a guy who studied human intelligence for his entire life. And I was not trained in marketing at the time at all. I didn't have any marketing education. What I had my study of military philosophy and study of human psychology. And I was just applying that to business and it worked really well. But I thought I should really learn from the people who've been doing this for a while. So I asked Win Wenger, I said, you recommend? And he says, this is before this guy, the name I'm about to give was big. He says, the guy I trust the most is Joe Vitale, right? And Joe, of course, is hugely famous now for his law of attraction stuff. And a lot of people don't know he's one of the best marketing experts alive. And Joe teaching me stuff, but he introduced me to a lot of other people. And the 2 other very consequential influences that I met through him, both, I believe, were Joe Sugarman, the guy who pioneered the blue blocker trend in the world and was known as the greatest gadget salesman in the world. He became a very close friend and dear mentor. And then also Ted Nicholas was a guy who sold billions of dollars with the power of the written word. One of the greatest copywriters ever. Ted and his family and I got very close as well. And those 2 were like fathers to me. Shorter term influence was Gary Halbert before he passed away. I knew him for a few years before he moved on. All 3 of those, by the way, have since passed away. That's how old I'm getting now. But so those 3 guys and Joe too. So actually I named 4. Yeah, those guys all had a huge impact on my understanding of business in the general world.
Yeah, those are amazing mentors to have. And I think what stands out to me a lot of times when I have conversations regarding what people's background is that they're not formally trained in any of this. Nobody went to university for advertising and came out and started being a marketing whiz. Maybe there are people, but the majority, at least, it seems like they stumbled into it and they're true fans of marketing. Like I love marketing. I love unpacking it. I love unpacking copy, why that works, funnel hacking. I just think that there's a natural attraction. It's something that you truly are passionate about. Really cool stuff. And for those of you listening, take note and all those, buy their stuff, buy their books, learn. One question I wanted to get into too was like technology is rapidly advancing. I recently started to just read the book Sapiens. It was recommended to me a long time ago. Never got around to it. First chapter, blown away, just listening. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so interesting. It makes sense. And I could just listen to that the entire day and watch Netflix series about all these phenomenons and literature. But I was talking to my wife and on the weekend, we had a bit of a conversation on the evolutionary perspective of our brains, of how they must be struggling to keep up and subconsciously comprehend what's happening around us. Because think of the advancements that happened in the last 100 years. far beyond what we're experienced and in a far shorter amount of time. So we might not consciously know what's happening, but I'm concerned that in one day we're going to have studies done about this era of all this advancement of technology and learning, and our brains either inability to keep up or just was effective at all. So a bit of a spiel to ask, like, how do you see the rapid pace of technological advancements playing a part in our future, if at all?
This is something I've been talking about for decades now, and my last book was all about this. I think it's the context in the conversation we all need to be having that we're not. To give a very short version of this, the way that one of the best visualizations I heard about it was from another dear friend and mentor, Robert Anton Wilson. He was a very interesting writer. People don't know about him. You can Google him. He was an unusual character, to put it mildly, but extremely intelligent. And one of the things he talked about was how, hey, a way to understand this, and this is also from like books like Future Shock and whatnot, there's a halving throughout time of the period of time in between paradigm shifts. So if you imagine, I'm going to come up with bullshit numbers right now, but if you imagine the disk of fire was 1,000,000 years ago, and then the Stone Age, 500,000, and then the next advancement would be 250, then the next 125, and it keeps having and having. Or so I talk about it in my latest book, is I call it the great halving or the great doubling, because the pace of change is doubling, right? Constantly. It's on an exponential curve. And so the way I simplify it for people is everything is getting faster, smaller, more powerful, more available, and cheaper, right? It's what I call the big five phenomena. And the thing that we need to understand is that it's happening every field of human endeavor. Like literally there's a paradigm shift every day. And you let people know like how big of a deal a paradigm shift is. Imagine a world without agriculture, right? Most people believe that agriculture is the foundation of civilization, right? How does that work? If you look at the Latin root of the word for civilization, it's civis, it means city. If we didn't have agriculture, we wouldn't have formed around cities. No agriculture, no civilization, right? That's a paradigm shift. We're experiencing a paradigm shift in some field of human endeavor every single day now, and it's happening so fast that people aren't even aware, right? So this is happening to everything, including weapons technology. So we have to really think about this. And the thing that the content I like to put this in is it's what I call the great war of the future. It's not between political ideologies or religions or even between nation states. It's between fast moving technology and slow moving government. Yeah. Right. This and the implications of what I just said, if you think about it, is holy crap. It's unequivocal when you hear it. It's, oh, that makes perfect sense. We have to face that. We're grappling with it right now. And technology is all moving past our ability to regulate it. And it's certainly way past our ability to manage it and comprehend it as individual humans.
Yeah. And this conversation always fascinates me because things are changing so quickly. And I've got two young boys right now, and I'm always thinking, how can I stay one step ahead like every parent would? And it makes it even harder in the world we're in today. And my wife is a grade 10, 11 high school teacher. And what you just said really resonated to me because what's happening is that there's so many technological advances surpassing public education systems, and it's never going to get in the curriculum fast enough for anyone to ever stay ahead of it. So how do you go and train to something that's going to be basically obsolete by the time you leave school? That's a whole big conversation, right? But man, like that's huge and something that I'm personally trying to stay ahead of. And it's who's the leader, who's leading that charge, right? So I'm looking for people, and if you have recommendations, but how can you stay ahead of it when you don't know what's coming?
The whole epiphany of that book is business owner understand. Yeah, how do you prepare for a world where your business model might even be rendered obsolete overnight? And to put it in context, to let you know how much everyone is at threat, BiOptimizers is a super future-proof business, right? But you've got to be pivotable, because here's the magnitude of the kind of thing that can happen. All right. So we had 3D printers when they first came out. They were a very rare item, a specialty item. It would cost you probably $50K for minimum for an early model, and then they got down to $10,000. Now you can buy a 3D printer on Amazon for $100. Okay, something that we have in the arsenal of technology that is still relatively expensive is peptide synthesis machines. Okay, if you can synthesize peptides now on a mass scale, that means eventually you're going to be able to synthesize peptides with a very reasonably priced machine, right? So every business has got to look at this and say, okay, let's prepare for the ability to be forced into a pivot. Now, to let everybody have the context of how consequential this can be and how the pivot has to, but how it's always doable, I think. If you look at YouTube, a lot of people don't know the history of YouTube, that it was originally a dating site. And they had a great idea. If you've ever been on a dating app, you've probably met someone who didn't quite look like their pictures, right? So they said, hey, let's use video because it will give people a better impression. I thought it was a brilliant idea, failed miserably. So what did they do? They didn't do what most business owners do. Most business owners say, Martha, we did our best, we're packing it up. And then they quit. But YouTube said, no, we've got the two things that I think are important for pivoting. They've got systems and they've got culture. And among the systems, they had this really amazing video streaming technology that they invented for the service. So they pivoted into what YouTube is now and then sold to Google. Alphabet $1 billion, right? So if you've got systems and culture in place, you can always pivot. You just have to be aware in the landscape that we're in now, that the pivot might be more profound than you're normally ready for.
I like that. I like the fact that systems and culture are at the top of your pyramid here. So I think that is really important. I never considered it. Honestly, when I started in like this business back in, that was 2007. So I was a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't think about systems. I was just like, how do I make money off of this? And you start that road. And then you're like, hey, I'm making money. And it's all, but I'm in chaos. This isn't a life I want. I'm not happy. I'm not balanced. So I've really been focused on that. And systems protect you. I think just naturally systems will protect me, whether it's through business or whether as an introvert to have systems of coping, or if I'm out in a public setting, my systems of what are my prompts, what are my questions, and how to prep for being social occasions. So I like that. And culture, hands down. If your company and your team doesn't have culture, I really hope that you still enjoy what you're doing. But ultimately, I think you're going to have a lot of people leaving because people are seeking culture. I think that one of the reasons why BiOptimizers is thriving and Utopia and companies that we're becoming are for those two main reasons. Like we're never stopping improving. And one of our core values is like S4, think, suggest, synergize, solve, and turn, grow. Those are some two great core values. So I like those two things. And I think that's a good cap on that question. And I want to get into, out of everything great happening, there are some things coming out like AI's. Obviously, 2023 is the AI trend. Everything's popping up and people can write an email now in seconds. You can refine it. You can prompt it. Those are all great. What are we not seeing? What are the downsides that's being neglected from these conversations that you can anticipate, or just something like you're predicting down the road here that it's, hey guys, you're not considering this?
So two things, right? One, the notion this is happening in every sector, including weapons technology, right? So to put that one in perspective, so that there's unintended consequences. Let's talk about unintended consequences in a minute. Let's put it this way. We have 3D printable automatic weapons now. And it's funny, in the world of 3D automatic weapons, or the ability to do that, we're talking about gun control, right? It's the last century's debate, guys. I'm sorry, whatever your feelings are about that. I don't even care like where you fall on the side of that debate. It's not relevant anymore. And again, the government is laughable in their response to it. It's what we're going to do is we're going to make the plans for 3D automatic weapons illegal. I'm like, oh, really? That worked out so well for downloads. It didn't put a dent in the digital download phenomenon. So government is just not ready. And if everything is growing exponentially, how many clock cycles before we have 3D printable weapon of mass destruction, right? So I talked about peptide synthesis machines. That's a potential 3D printable weapon of mass destruction. There's some great peptides out there. There's some very nasty peptides out there that one could synthesize if they were so inclined. So that's the one thing people are not considering, is that we're going to be very soon one person's outburst away from ending the world because everybody has access to all these things. We really need to think about, though, the implications of that. None of our politicians are having this conversation. And I'm like, man, I don't know what they're doing up there. You guys are asleep at the wheel a little bit, or maybe they're thinking about it and they're trying to implement a response. Some of the theories about what's going on in the world are based around the notion that there are people who see this kind of thing and are trying to implement control as a response, and they're doing it by stealth. Whatever one thinks about, that's fine. The other thing is unintended consequences. Right? Antibiotics, when they first came out, were hailed as a miracle, right? And in some cases, they were a miracle, but we didn't know about the human biome back then. We didn't know that there are estimates that some people argue with this number, but it's around 9-to-1 non-human to human cells in the body, right? If we've got 90 trillion cells approximately in the whole body, only 10 trillion of them are human, right? That's how huge the biome is. And it's more complex than most people will give credit. There's also the virome, the bacteriophages that are little viruses that attack bacteria. There's all kinds of weird stuff going on there, and our knowledge about it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. We didn't know that consuming antibiotics was going to be like the neutron bomb attack in the human body that it's turned out to be, right? And you guys are working to fix that. A lot of what you guys do is working on restoring people's biome integrity. And a lot of that integrity is lost from all pharma, but mostly the antibiotics. So that's the magnitude of thing we need to think about. We've got things like graphene coming out, and it sounds incredibly wonderful. I've been talking about it for a long time, but man, there could be unintended consequences from the use of graphene. We're talking about nanomaterials. What is that going to do to us? We don't know. That nobody really talks about that much. So we better start thinking about, I think.
I think it was a Spider-Man movie. There's with great power comes great responsibility. And the more advanced we get with technology, the more we have to be careful with it. And I think 3D modeling of guns is like everyone has the power now to destroy something, but yet I think that there's like less and less like mass world wars happening, which is interesting because you think it'd be the opposite in a way. Hey, everyone's got the power now to take things over, but everyone's scared to use it, or they're being disciplined and not using it. And the thing that like I want to tie this all, I love the health side too, and I want to tie it back a little bit to entrepreneurs, workers from home, people that are actually doing this online. For me, it comes down to AI and how we use it, and not relying solely on AI as a tool that's going to get you through the next part of your business or make you the next million. And it might, but is it sustainable? And is it a culture driven business? Is it a mission driven business? So I think there is a discipline of like, how do we use this properly? But back to systems, what's the system look like? Because the tool is only going to get you as far as your system. If you have a crappy hiring system, you have a crappy culture, you're not going to have a great time working with AI, or you're not going to produce better results, but you're never going to get to the next level, or you'll maybe not be, or maybe you are, maybe you're a solopreneur and you love it and it makes you millions and good for you. But yeah, I'm interested also. So let's talk a little bit about like just how can we prepare for this in your mind? Like I want to hear the Mark Joyner's perspective here as to what you're going to recommend everyone to do from this podcast listening to curb those unintended consequences as you keep referring back to them.
There's a framework that I use called the 3 essential hedges, right? Simpleology was a response to a lot of this to almost 20 years ago now that it came out. One of the things that I talk about is this thing called the complexity gap, right? Our conscious working memory is only 7 bits on average. Of course, there's a bell curve. Some people have higher, some people have lower, but that is a number that it's one of the best studied phenomena in all of cognitive science. The amount of information that we're putting in the world is not only increasing, it's increasing exponentially, right? So in 2004, Eric Schmidt famously said, hey, from the dawn of recorded history up until the end of 2003, we put in 4 exabytes into the stream, right? In 2004, we're adding that much data into the stream every 2 to 3 days, right? This is what Eric Schmidt said in 2004. So you can imagine here what's happening now, right? What the pace is now. I don't even know what the number will be for that. I don't know if anybody could even measure it anymore. So this is the complexity gap, right? We've always had this gap. It's just getting more and more pronounced. So simpleology was one of the first responses to that. It's, hey, how do you manage the mind in a world of increasing complexity? So that's the foundation of what I have folks do. But then the 3 essential hedges are for business owners. And the first is to prioritize as assets in your life, your skills, knowledge, and health, right? Because one of the things that could happen in this rapid change is your currency could become valueless. They could seize your assets. Every country has eminent domain laws where you can, if it's in the national interest, they can take whatever you got, including your property. What happens if you lose everything, right? If your skills, knowledge, and health are not intact, God help you. There are a lot of people who get into their business life and they neglect their health so that they can get rich because they're gonna throw money at the problem later. And I'm like, you could get into an emergency and not have the energy to respond to it. So if your skills, knowledge, and health aren't the foundational assets in your life, you're misprioritizing stuff. So that's hedge number 1. Hedge number 2 is the lifeboat business, which is what we talked about, systems and culture. It's a business that's inherently pivotable because it has an emphasis on systems and culture, as you guys do. So I think you guys would fare very well if forced with a rapid pivot because you have good systems and you have good culture, right? So that's number 2. I think if people base their business on a model that is not inherently designed to be quickly pivotable, they're going to find themselves in a lot of hot water if they're faced with the forcing of a pivot, which is going to happen to more and more people, and it's going to happen more and more rapidly. People don't understand like how fast it's going to get, right? If we thought what's happened with ChatGPT is anything, well, just remember, this is exponential, guys. That's a taste. It just tells us we're at the bottom of the slope, right? It's going to get faster and faster. The third is big tech marketing independence. And it's a little counterintuitive because people are like, man, I thought big tech would be aren't they going to be our best saviors? Here's the problem. They can cut your throat and not have a valid reason to do it. There are a lot of people, and I'll say this in live audiences. I'll say, hey guys, I said, stand up if you ever had a Google slap. Stand up and stay standing, right? Stand up if you ever had an ad account shut down for no good reason. Nobody would ever tell you. More people stand up. And I list a bunch of things like this. And then by the end of it, 95% of the people in the room are standing up. It's okay. If you get hit like that, Let's say your business is completely dependent on Facebook ads, and then suddenly your Facebook ads dry up. God help you. You'd better figure it out. So if you have big tech marketing independence first, and this kind of gets into integration marketing is the answer, this is what will prepare you. And the metaphor I like to give people is imagine have only Facebook as your source. Then you have a table with one leg. If you got a table with one leg, you chop off the leg, you don't have a table anymore. You got a more or less useless hunk of wood, right? But if you have a table with 1,000 legs through integration marketing deals, you can chop off 100 of those and your table is still standing strong. So that people need to do is create those. And that's what the book Integration Marketing is all about, forming the, what you say, partner up profits, right? Forming these types of alliances with people so that if any particular source that you have dries up, and it can, is highly pivotable or highly rapidly changing world, then you'll be way better prepared for that. So I think every business owner, if they're not doing that now, they need to do it right away, because there will almost for sure be a time where it's going to be important.
Well said. And diversification of income streams is very important, like anybody knows, but not taking the time to develop a solid plan. I stumbled into that integration marketing strategy from maybe 6 years ago. I had a conversation with Matt. Matt's like, we're going to get into podcast ads. And I was like, cool, man. And then I went home and I was like, what's a podcast? I had no idea what a podcast was. It was at the forefront of how podcasts released before, could never. I was like, I'm just going to make it work because I'm a biz developer and I'll just make it work. We build
Yeah.
like multiple extensions. I call it like halo marketing or omni-channel marketing when it comes to partnerships. Like there's influencers, podcasters, affiliates, rev share, commissions, but we
Yeah.
are never standing on one leg anymore. To your point, you just got a Facebook ad account shut down or Google slapped and your business is down. You need to diversify and learn other things. And that's why I teach people how to do influencer marketing and courses and affiliate marketing and just all these other
Yeah.
strategies. So I want to talk more about integration marketing. I'll be honest, I read 3 chapters. I did not get through the book and I wanted to, but so far I'm like, I'll listen to 1 chapter. And then I was listening and then I couldn't stop listening to have the audible of it. I was a bit disappointed that you weren't actually reading them, but
There's a quick story behind that. I was actually in New Zealand moving my entire house to the United States. And the day I was supposed to go into the studio and record it, I was like, hey guys, there's one priority I said, let me reschedule. And they got a little miffed at me and they got somebody else to do it. And I thought I was going to do it because I love to read my own books. Anyway.
It's a great book so far. I'm really enjoying it. And of course, we talk about integration marketing. We've talked our conversations on marketing and reverse engineering funnels and all that fun stuff. Let's talk a little bit about how this can help a business. And the tagline, which is really interesting, how small businesses become big businesses and big businesses become empires. Share a little bit about the book and just who could benefit and what they can expect from reading it.
Anybody in any level of business can benefit from this, because if you're a low level of business, it's going to give you a way to get traffic without having to risk money with paid ads, right? So that's one of the primary premises of integration marketing. It's used to create enormous business as well. In fact, some of the greatest fortunes in the history of the world are integration marketing stories. Microsoft was an integration marketing deal. So basically, to give everybody a quick definition of integration marketing, you have a unit of marketing value. It could be a message, it could be a call to action, it could be a product even, could even be a physical store. And you integrate it into a traffic stream or a transaction stream. And those traffic streams and transaction streams are everywhere. So traffic is anywhere people are, and there's going to be higher and lower density traffic streams, obviously, and better and worsely targeted traffic streams. Like you wouldn't want to integrate an offer for steak in a vegan health resort. And then there are transactions which are better, right? For example, Joe Sugarman caught me on to the whole idea, and I started expanding it to larger pictures. It's way beyond what most people think of when they think of like joint ventures and partnerships and stuff like that. The idea is a lot bigger, right? So blue blockers, you would call them up, and they would upsell you. That's a form of integration marketing. You're integrating one of your own offers into a traffic stream, right? That's when you think of funnels, that's what we're doing, right? But the one cool thing that people don't know is you can do that with other companies too, right? And that's where, the mind can just get huge. Like one of the first things I was teaching people, and Russell Brunson uses this in ClickFunnels, he says they're getting more money from their integration marketing deals now, 10 years later, right? He was like, getting started, and he was like, what would Mark tell me to do? And so he started doing integration marketing deals. And he said that they're spending $2 million a month on ads now in ClickFunnels, right? They're getting more revenue from their integration marketing deals that they set up 10 years ago than they are from their entire paid advertising budget. So if you look at Microsoft, if people don't know the history of personal computers, Apple was the first big major player in the personal computing business. A lot of people don't know that history. They just thought, Oh, it was always Microsoft. No, well, it was Microsoft and IBM together when they did their later foray into personal computing. The IBM was primarily business machines. That's international business machines. That was their model. So they decided that they wanted to break into the PC business. So they built a machine together with Intel on open architecture because they didn't understand they just thought it was a cool, trendy thing to do. And then they didn't have an operating system to run it. Now, Bill Gates found a guy with an operating system, but the story most people tell, which is to me is far less interesting. Bill Gates didn't actually have the rights to DOS when he went to go have the conversation with IBM. And then he paid the guy after the deal was closed $50,000 for it. A lot of people say that's the main point. To me, it's nothing compared to the real point. The real point, when he negotiated that deal with IBM, he told them, he said, look, you guys want ROS, wonderful. We have two conditions. And IBM said, okay, what are they? He said, number one, we have to retain the customer relationship. So if anybody wants to buy and up into the software, it has to be through us. And IBM, in their hubris of preeminence, which happens to a lot of people when they get successful, they said, yeah, sure, no problem. Everybody knows all the money's in the hardware, right? They didn't understand. Bill Gates was smart enough to see it. So what did he get? He got a customer handed to him on a silver platter. And when you know that it costs minimum 4 times as much or sometimes some people estimate 10 times as much to acquire a new customer as it does to sell to an existing one. But that was, man, what a golden opportunity. Like, they install software on every machine that they sent out, and they did all of the effort to sell the machine. And then they were like, thank you. Now we have the customer. We're going to sell all the upgrades. The other negotiation point that Bill Gates had was that he would reserve the right to do that with other outfits because they were doing this on open architecture and they didn't truly understand the implications. Other people were taking that same architecture and creating competing personal computers. And IBM's response was, sure, no problem. We're IBM. Who's going to compete with us? IBM is now the number 3 computer manufacturer in the world, right? 2 of the original competitors that Bill Gates started partnerships with became 1 and 2, right? So what's the point of this? If you're integrating, you can integrate into many interesting places and they can create fortunes. You have the right integration deal. Bill Gates was able to do that with IBM and all of the other people out there doing it. Imagine how quick that was able to grow for him at such an incredibly low cost. That's some of the deeper implication of integration marketing in the late stage.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that's insightful ideas of how that happened for Bill Gates. I wasn't aware of that, but it's very smart, like you said. Let's take one other example of that. Supplement companies. How do they do
Yeah.
integration marketing? Walk me through what would you do with Misers? You're
Yep.
behind the driver's seat. How do we do integration marketing?
Okay. You guys are already doing a lot of it, right? I would look for traffic streams and transaction streams, and then I would list them all out, and then I would use one of the intellectual tool I came up with, I call Jaime. This is one of our Simpleology tools. Every Simpleology list has a Jaime sorter. You can sort it by impact and ease, right? Hey, of all these different partnership opportunities, which will be the most impactful? Rate them 1 to 10. And then how easy will they be to make the deal? 10 being super easy, 1 being super hard. You list all of them out, you Jaime score them, and then you click sort. And then the one that has the highest score is going to tend to be the smartest deal to work with. So you work downward with the Jaime scored list. So you let your imagination flow. So you guys are doing a lot of the low hanging fruit already. And I'll give you some other ideas that might open some things up. So you're already talking to people who have biohacking audiences, one of the big channels. So what if we start thinking about adjacent industries? Like, for example, we know that masszymes work at a systemic level in the body to dissolve sometimes tissue that could be causing physical pain, right? What if you started targeting physical therapists, chiropractors, other people who are dealing with physical pain like that? So there are adjacent markets that I would always encourage people to start getting into, right? Sometimes depending on the messaging, the targeting might be more or less consequential, but if the messaging is right and the targeting is right, those veins of new customers, if you're to think of them as branches on a giant river, some of those branches can be as consequential as some of the precisely targeted ones. Like the guys who are targeting people who already are like supplement junkies, great. But if I have a physical therapist who's going to recommend a supplement to me to help me get out of pain, that's a really potent recommendation. We could go on for probably hours brainstorming potential adjacent. So that's one huge thing to look at over time. Any company that I work with, I encourage them to start branching out into that because it's a source for growth that's enormous. I'll just say another one would be physical locations. There are going to be a lot of physical locations out there. One company that did this exceedingly well for a while was Bill Phillips with his Body for Life business. That's a very interesting story if you guys haven't studied that, how they started and how they had a rise to preeminence for a while. They launched the EAS nutrition company. Probably the biggest product they had was Myoplex. It was a whey protein shake. And I have opinions about whey protein now. They're a little bit different. But back then, everybody was like, it's all about the whey. And at their peak, you could go into grocery stores and see stacks of EAS Simplex there ready for people to buy. And that's another level that I think BiOptimizers should aspire to, right? Where can we get physically? There's no reason why we can't be selling digestion packets in every supermarket in the world at the very least. It's even an impulse buy. Hey, try a little pack of this. This is good for 5 nights out. Boom, right? And there's all sorts of physical locations. Like that's another thing that we'll need to think about. Yeah, the number of nutrition stores in the world is certainly a lot lower now than it was once upon a time before the internet, but they're still out there. Hell, I was in Mall of Dubai recently, and there was like 6 nutrition stores just in the Mall of Dubai. And I thought, this is still there. It's still a phenomenon. But then you start thinking about adjacent markets too. So all of those different private practices that we're talking about, there's not a single physical therapist or chiropractor in the world who shouldn't be selling Masszymes custom, because it's going to improve their mobility if they use it systemically. That's another source. There's all sorts of different avenues we could go down with that too. And I would say really push your imagination about where those physical locations are. And if you get the right connections, where you find people that have chains of these things, right? Those are the people that you get really big headway with. But you can do it with small shops too. There's no reason not to. Those small shops can add onesies and twosies can start to add up over time, especially if you train how to properly sell it. There's a sales presentation that would be super effective for that.
And that's such gold. We brought in an expert in retail recently because we didn't know the how. We needed to find the who. There's a great book by Sam Carpenter, The Who Not the How, changed my life. I love the book. That's our mission now. We don't have to figure out how to do this. Find somebody who can do it. I think I wanted to just recap a couple of really cool ideas I wanted to highlight. So when retail and physical locations might not be the first starting point. Establish yourself online, establish your lifestyle you want, but then
that's right.
Finding the who is extensions and it's integration marketing. The other thing I really like, which we've done again by accident, I love now that there's like a label, is literally, we can saturate the who's selling supplements. Let's sell more supplements of ours. That's been done and it's hard. It's competitive. I always refer to it as like harmonized avatars where they're not buying your product, but they're believing the same beliefs and they're on the same mission as you. Like biohackers also red light therapy. Okay. Maybe we start to partner with them because so it's really just getting creative and diversifying who your selection process is in your prospecting exercise. And I love that idea. And not many people are actually doing that. So I think that's a great strategy. And it's a great reminder. I think it's an 1.5-hour book. Like it's a great read. It's a great reminder that I'm going to keep reading again and again, because I actually use books as I don't say a lot of prayers. I'm not a religious guy, but I like to have a conversation going on in my head. It's maybe a bit higher level than where I'm at in that day, right? To keep me on track, keep me leveling up, keep me accountable. So I highly recommend the book. Mark, what about Roadmap to Money? Or is this all the funnel that we're going to be going down and getting all these wonderful bonuses and things?
Yeah, in fact. So that we were talking about fast moving tech versus slow moving government. That's like the main thesis of the book. And helping people get to an awareness of what's actually going on in the world right now, like what the really important conversations are and the implications of all those conversations. And there are all sorts of opportunities that are discussed in the book. So for example, I talk about like 9 different growth areas. If you're going to pivot your business, if you've got to pivot, or if you want to start a new business, where are you most likely to make money in light of this rapid pace of technological change? That's one of the many in there. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I talk about is the rise, fall, and rise of the middleman, right? So the middleman was doing extremely well for a large chunk of human recorded history. And then we started to see the fall of the middleman. We had what I would call like thin layer middleware, like Uber, right? It's putting all of these taxi companies out of business. So those middlemen are falling away because of certain technological shifts. But now there's a rise of what I call mutant middlemen. So as technology changes, a lot of people are like saying, oh, the middleman is dead. Technology has killed the middleman. I'm like, no, man, that's not actually what's happening. That has happened a lot. There's no doubt about that. Your observation is 100% correct, right? To the people who say that. What those futurists are missing is that change is going to bring new ones. I'll give you one really interesting example. that has, to let people know the context. So it's May 24th, 2023. You and I are having this conversation. This is the year where ChatGPT blew up. We watched it go 0 to a million users in the fastest recorded time in history. And then it went from 0 to, I think, over 100 million users in the fastest time in recorded history. And it's a fraction of what it's taken other companies to do. That's how quickly ChatGPT has grown. So the artificial intelligence revolution happening right before our very eyes right now. How many people now, within the pace of like, when did this start? It was like February where it really started blowing up, I think. And here we are in May. And already we've got thousands of prompt engineers out there, right? These people are suddenly like, I am a prompt engineer. I'm a specialist with AI. And I'm like, man, you can't be a specialist in AI yet. You don't even come close to understanding it. But this is the funny thing, is that this is a sign of that future trend of a whole, we're going to spawn limitless permutations of mutant middleman opportunities as the world changes. AI came in and shifted things for a lot of people. By the way, I never write with AI. I'm old school. I just optimize my brain and can write really fast. I train myself to do that, which, by the way, is a pathway we should consider to compete with the machines. Elon Musk wants to drill a 3 millimeter hole in our cranium. Kind of lost me on that one. I would like to explore ways to optimize my human potential first. So maybe there are powers inside of us that are greater than we know yet. Anyway, planting seeds there for somebody. So those mutant middlemen, there are going to be limitless permutations to this. So people should start looking for that kind of opportunity. This is the kind of thing that book gets into. So it helps people see the battlefield that we're in right now. And then once you understand, okay, holy crap, that's the magnitude of what we're talking about. How do we function in that world now? And that's what the rest of the book is about.
That's cool. You sold me. I'm definitely going to go check it out. We've got a link for everyone, partnerupprofits.com, road to money. They'll be in the show notes. Also, check out Mark. I'm going to mention a couple of his handles here. Instagram handle, author Mark Joyner, official markjoyner.com. And again, partnerupprofits.com, roadmap to money. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to get in some personal questions. I hope you've got some time to just share. Part of this conversation I love is not just getting to know somebody on the expert level that we all maybe know them in the public eye of. I want to get to know the person a little bit more. And I've got some questions that I want to get answered. And I never have the opportunity to talk to people in this environment. So yeah, let's do it. First question. I always ask everybody because I'm compiling a 101 ways to partner up and profit book one day. And it's going to involve everyone on the pod and all the partner up moves we have. The one I'm going to ask is, what's your number one partnership connection strategy? And I know you said, Joey, I'm not really a partnership marketing expert. You are a connection expert though. You connect with people, you're on stage. So I want to know, how do you get someone's attention? If you're trying to get on someone's podcast and he's not paying attention to you, if you've got the right, you're a good fit, but they're still not picking up your phone because they get hit up left and center. What's something you've done creatively or something someone's done for you? That's it. That's a great move.
I'll tell you two things. One, heavily strategic. The other one, extremely tactical, right? So the strategic stuff is, of course, foundationally what we should be focused on, because it's the stuff that's going to have the long-lasting cultural impact on everything that you do. There should be overarching strategy to what people do. Otherwise, where are you going? How are you actually going to achieve what you want to achieve? If you have only a single tactic, it's great. That tactic may not be useful over time, especially in this landscape. So strategically, what I recommend people do is to follow the dictum of never go in the front door, always go through the side door, right? I think I'll write a book about this someday. Always go through the side door, the back door. So I'll give you an example. If anybody here is old enough to remember the movie Wall Street, the original one, I can't remember what Charlie Sheen's character's name was, but he was always perched in front of Gordon Gekko's office every day. He would bring him cigars and all kinds of stuff. Smart, but it's still going through the front door. He had to be like the Shaolin Temple supplicant, showing up every day hearing a no until the Shaolin Temple guy's, okay, you've been freezing out here for 3 months, get your ass in, let's go. Right? That persistence works, right? A better way is to know somebody who knows somebody. And I'll tell you, for me, that was one of the most intelligent things I did when I was really young. Was I was like, okay, I know Joe Vitale now. Joe knows like almost everybody. I got in Joe's good graces because I did the first ebook publishing for him. It took me 2-3 years to get him to say yes, because he was like, nobody's going to buy ebooks. Right? We were the first publishers of ebooks. And he finally said yes. For a weekend, he comes back to his computer and finds all these notifications. He's like, why am I getting all these emails? I said, bro, those are sales. And he's like, really? He's like, how much have I made? And I said, oh, you just made about 50K over the weekend. That's what we did for you. Do you want to put anything that I've got? So Joe fell in love with us at that point. He and I were friends before that, but then we got very close. He's one of my best friends now. And then I said, hey, look, I'm happy to. I said, just promise me that you'll introduce me to other people. He said, no problem. He says, I know a lot of people who would love to do this with you. I said, great. Through Joe, I met all of these direct marketing greats. And I gave them all an offer. I was like, hey, let me publish your stuff for you. So I made a lot of these people a lot of money, right? So I used the side door to connect with them. And I found one really powerful side door opportunity. And then I did something relevant for their lives. Those people would probably have never had the same connection with me. I would like to think that they would have been scintillated by my stories. But I don't think that was the whole story. That wasn't the whole, I think a large percent of this has to do with the fact that I made them all a metric crap ton of money, right? And then they're like, wow, we love you, right? And that turned into great relationships. And all of those people I was able to start filtering out now, right? So that's strategically what people need to think about, because you're doing favors for people, which you guys are doing, by the way. You guys are making a lot of people a lot of money, right? With the partnership opportunities that you guys have. Start expanding that outward. So that's the strategic thing, to always look for side door opportunities. And a lot of people are like, I don't know anybody. I'm like, sure you do. You're not going to get there right away. Start small, right? And start leveraging those connections into bigger and bigger connections. That's the other thing, strategic.
Hmm.
Actually, I'll tell you one specific thing, surprisingly a non-internet thing. One of the best techniques I've ever seen out there, and this is by no means anything I invented. It's something I wish I could give credit to whoever thought of it first, but there's this dictum that no gets a FedEx envelope or box without opening it. I think the only time that's ever happened was in the movie Castaway. You ever saw the movie? He has the one box with the golden wings on it. He doesn't open that because it symbolizes hope for him. It's the only time it's ever happened, right? So everybody, go ahead.
The one time, right?
The one time, right? Yeah. Normal human, you get a FedEx envelope, you open it up. This is something important. Yeah. And it's right away. So sending people stuff via FedEx is extremely powerful. I'll give you an idea of how ninja you could get with it. One guy I saw, I can't remember who did this, but it was so smart. He took a FedEx box, and I was one of the recipients of this. He was doing this to launch his book. He sent his book in a FedEx box, and it had a recorder, right? And it said, it was a video recorder. Now, this was like before there are handheld cameras in your phone and all that. This was like, hey, it was an actual digital video recording when those things were new. It would still work, I think, even if you use those. He hand wrote a note on the book, and he hand wrote a note, the recorder. And the note on the book was like a really warm, and the note on the recorder was push play. So I pushed play as a personalized message. Hey, Mark. And he said intelligent things that showed me that he actually knew who I was. It wasn't like some of the AI generated, hey, insert name here. And then it generates 1,000 names for their software that does that now. I could tell it was really thoughtful. It was like, okay, this guy didn't just ham-handedly segue in, hey, I went to your site and I really love it. It was thoughtful stuff. And the pitch was, hey, there's a self-addressed stamped return FedEx envelope in there. Would you be so kind as to read my book and then record a testimonial on this device, plop it into the return FedEx envelope and ship it back to me?
Wow.
I tell you what, you got to be a real dick not to do that, because you get this expensive, right? It was very clever.
Especially, what year was that around?
That was around 2006, I think.
And that's so much more powerful because of the timing of that too. Think about now you can just send a loom to somebody and it's,
Yeah.
I still get excited when I get books in the mail. Like I got this one that has a note on it. Some people write directly on the cover or the flap. There's LCD video cards too. You can send like a nice little, it's like a business card too. But I think going the extra effort is worth it. The abundance mentality of that's going to cost me $20, but think of the opportunity, right? Like how much does that voice recorder cost if the guy never got it back? Yeah, it's out of pocket.
Yeah.
But who's gonna, like you said, be a dick about it? Probably not that many people. And if they are, but they're not the right partner or the person for you, in which case you tried and there's gonna be success and failure rates. So that's awesome. I love that one. I love the side door.
I'll tell you what, today you could do this with a relatively cheap phone. You could probably tell them the password for the phone and tell them where the file is to press. And if somebody sends me a phone, even if, so you could, for surprisingly cheap, you can get pretty late model phones now. For $100, you can get one that's not really any more than 5 years old. I've had phones that I used for 5, 6 years straight because I'm like, there's no point for me to upgrade. I'm not going to see if I go buy it, right? So getting a physical object in there It's a real differentiator, I think, especially if you combine it with that thoughtfulness of and personalization. And you would only reserve that for like your legit dream 100 people.
Yeah, that's powerful. And as soon as you said in an envelope, I went straight to the Matrix when Neo picks up the phone and he gets a call from Morpheus. So I don't know, it's a bit scary, but I'd like to go down that rabbit hole. All right.
Yeah, I
Thank you,
love it.
Mark. That was awesome. Let's go through some another quick fire questions. This,
Good.
whatever comes to mind first, quick and easy, one word answer as much as you can. Favorite,
Favorite food? Ooh, man. Because I'm carnivore lately, bacon and eggs.
best memory.
Oh, man. I've had so first time I became a number one best-selling author.
Mm.
Felt amazing. Yeah.
If you had another go round, got to write a new story for your life, what would it be in 30 seconds or less?
Be a musician.
Yes, I'm going to be in your band too.
Right on. Let's do it.
What's the best productivity hack you've implemented in your business? And you can't say simpleology.
The fun, all of the stuff that we use in our culture is all like simpleology driven stuff. So it's hard to come up with a non-something. Best productivity hack, optimizing health.
Yeah. And by the way, simpleology, definitely get it. The Jaime tool. Anytime you can eliminate friction in decision making, it makes things so much easier and less stressful. So do you want, listen, you might already be retired. This is your retirement. I don't know. But do you want to retire? Do you see yourself on a beach somewhere just drinking Mai Tais? Or are you like, I want to keep working? What are you doing in your retirement years, let's say?
Retirement is total bullshit. It's worse than bullshit. It's a trap, right? Because we think that we're going to sit around and lounge and that's going to somehow give us satisfaction. Military retirees die in 5 years in their 40s. They do their 20 after they join at 20, they're 40. 5 years later, they die. This happens because they're sedentary, right? This happens a lot. And I have visions of certain things I will shift into. There are larger like philanthropic objectives I would like to accomplish. But that's what I would do. I would never stop moving.
Yeah, and that's really a trick question. No one ever answers that I want to retire. They just get the creative juices flowing as to what else I'm going to be doing, and I think that's
Yeah.
the chapter. What book changed your life, business or personal?
So many books. I would say from one of the late friends of mine I mentioned, who was also a great mentor, Robert Anton Wilson. The first exposure I had to him was a fiction book he co-wrote called the Illuminatus Trilogy. It exposed me to so many radically different ideas. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of reading his stuff, and it opened up my mind to all sorts of things I had not yet considered. So that was probably a gateway drug for me to more profound ideas at a very young age.
Awesome. What do you want to be remembered for?
A lot of my past accomplishments, I would love to be remembered for those, but I would like to more be remembered for things that I had yet to do that I hope are more impactful, especially things that I want to do that impact the great conflict of the future I talked about between fast moving tech and slow moving government. I think those are probably the most useful contributions I can make, maybe.
What's one skill you'd recommend anybody early on in the career developing to just be the most impactful in whatever they do going forward?
Mastering something I call Konkyo Kaizen. Kaizen, of course, is small gradual improvements. Konkyo is the Japanese word for environment. So I've invented like this little discipline. Konkyo Kaizen is make physical changes in your environment that will impact your behavior, right? So what I tell people is like, I give them a very strict set of rules. Clear a path to the things that you want. Put up a barrier between things that you don't want, right? For example, if you struggle with junk food, get it all out of your house. Have lots of healthy snacks within arm's reach. And then put guardrails around your life so that you are moving in a direction, so that your environment pushes you in the direction that you want to go. There's a lot you can do with this. There's so much you can do with it. And it's way more consequential than people realize. And it creates a silent system running in the background of your life that you don't even have to be consciously aware of. You set it once and forget it and allow it to have that impact on your life. It's way more important than most people realize.
That's very powerful hearing that as a parent, as a team leader, as a company owner too. I think that we have access to so many things. We're instant access to information, dopamine loops, and we can get really distracted really fast. So understanding how to curb that and control and be disciplined, interact. I think that's really powerful. My number one thing is always the skill to adapt. But I think that adapting is understanding those limitations as to what those devices are creating or whatever else is coming up. Okay, I've got this one. This one's a cool one, right? So I want to jump this. What's one you want to celebrate in a year from today if we were meeting up again at an event or just back on the phone? What's one thing you'd want to accomplish and we were having a celebration about?
There's something big coming up for BiOptimizers. Can I mention that, or is that secret at this point?
Yeah, mention away.
I think that's probably going to be the most consequential thing that we work on together. I would like to see that be way beyond Matt and Wade's current expectations for success. I think it can be more consequential even than they're envisioning. I would love to look back at that over the next year. Speaking of things we're doing together, I think it might be bigger than they realize.
I have a hunch too. And based on the releases of what's coming, there's a book, there's a kit, there's a complete revolutionary diet wars documentary that is going to be happening. And around this time, it should have taken off, caught fire, and reached the mainstream, which is really the intention in getting some pretty big shows to get the message across. And yeah, so that's a good one. I'm going to put a follow up on that a month before it happens.
Yeah, right on.
And last one here, Mark, what's one bucket list item that you want to do or a new chapter of your life you still want to write?
I will have a post-business career for sure, where I'll be like sitting on the board of companies and still influencing and guiding them, but doing different things with my day-to-day. There are all sorts of different. So what I would be doing is launching different forms of startups that are more philanthropically based and sitting on the board of those organizations as well. But making sure that all of those things can be well-funded because I want them to succeed, whether or not they're commercially viable or commercially successful. There are a number of bells that I think that we've got to ring for this world. The governments of the world are not ringing for us. And I would like to spearhead.
What a great end to a great conversation. I love that. And I look forward to seeing you do that. I think you'd actually thrive in that environment too. So awesome talking to you, Mark. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. I enjoyed the conversation today. I hope that everyone listening goes and gets Simpleology, goes to partnerprofits.com/roadmap to money. Find out what everything we're talking about today. It's going to help you in your career. It's going to help you in your life. It's going to help you just be disciplined and understand yourself better, be more successful and be happier. So once again, thank you for your time, Mark. Appreciate you on the call today.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. Till next time, take care. We'll see you soon. Cheers.